Hey peeps, it's Jedd here from Disrupt Tutoring, and as always, such a pleasure and a privilege to join you. Today we're going to deal with a slightly trickier functions question, and by the end of this we'll have a really good understanding of functions. So they've given us f of x equals ax squared plus c. Now f passes through the x-axis at d minus 5 and d minus 1, where d is an element of the real numbers. They've then given us this question, determine the value of d. Now this is something I've personally never seen before, and I'm sure you've probably never seen a question like this before, and it requires a really good understanding of functions. So let's first look at f of x. f of x equals ax squared plus c. Now we know that f of x equals ax squared plus c must give us a parabola. Okay, so we know we're working with a parabola here. What's also really important is it is a parabola that is cut in half or has a turning point that is on our y-axis. So if I draw it out, just roughly on the side here, I am going to have a parabola that looks something like this. Okay, and what's interesting about that is I know that the cut of the x-axis here is going to be the negative number of the cut of the x-axis over here. So that's really important. So that means if I add up this x-intercept with this x-intercept, the two added up together is going to give me 0. And that is the starting point for question 6.1. So 6.1 is going to be d minus 5, which is probably our x-intercept on this side, and we're going to add that with d minus 1, which is going to be this x-intercept on the right-hand side, and we know the sum of those is going to give us 0. Now we've created an equation with one variable to solve for, and that means we can solve for d. So d plus d is going to give us 2d. I'm going to get rid of the numbers and move them to the right-hand side. So that's minus 5 minus 1 is minus 6, and we're going to add 6 to both sides. So we're going to have a 6 on that side, and then we're going to have d is equal to 3, nice and easy, and that is a really well-deserved 2 marks because it requires a very good understanding of parabolas. We move on to question 6.2 now, in which they've asked us to determine the values of a and c if it is also given that f of 1 is equal to minus 9. So they've said to us, determine the values of a and c if it is given that f1 is equal to minus 9. So here it's very important for us to use one of the formulas for a parabola, and then we also need to subs in a point to calculate the remaining variable. Okay, so let's first figure out what our x-intercepts are. And the x-intercepts here is we would put the d back in to the d minus 5, d minus 1. So in this case, let me go back to pen, the x-intercepts are going to be, so we've got d minus 5, so that is going to be 3 minus 5, so that's minus 2 and 0. And we've also got d minus 1, so that's 3 minus 1, which is 2 and 0, which really gives us a good understanding of the x-intercepts and how it's perfectly symmetrical across the y-axis. Right, so now we're going to use that to generate some sort of equation for this parabola. Okay, and we know we can use an equation where we've got y is equal to a, and we've got x minus 1, x minus 2, so that's going to be x minus 2 and x plus 2, because those are the roots of this equation. We're then going to solve that out. So we're going to solve that out. So that's going to be y is equal to a times, okay, and because that's a difference of two squares, we know it's going to be x squared minus 4. Okay, so x squared minus 4, which is great. And then we're going to plug in a point on this curve. So what is the point on this curve? They've given us f of 1 is minus 9. So that means for x is 1, this must be minus 9. So we've got minus 9 equals a, and x squared is 1 minus 4. And I'm running out of space, but I hope you don't mind. I'm going to start moving to the right-hand side. I've got one more line that I can probably use here. So that's going to be minus 9 equals 1 minus 4, that's going to be minus 3a. So that means I can solve for a, and a is therefore going to be a equals, if I divide both sides by minus 3, I'm going to get 3. So now we know a is 3, which is very, very important to know. And now I'm going to plug that 3 back in, and we're going to try and solve for c. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to say that f of x is equal to 3 times x squared minus 4. If I solve for that, that is going to give me 3x squared, and that is going to give me minus 12. So therefore, my not my p-value, I'm used to it always being a p. My c value is going to be minus 12. And that gets you a really, really, really well-deserved 4 marks, because that again requires a really good understanding of parabolas, particularly around the equations and the formulas for these. So really good job if you got to the end. Remember, you can rewatch this a number of times until you get it right. If you still don't understand it, remember you can send us a question and we'll try our best to help you out. Very special thank you to our sponsors for making this video possible. Read all about them in the description below. Also, remember you can send us send us a question and we'll respond with a video which answers the question that has been plaguing your nightmares. Until the next time, stay epic.